Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello friends, welcome back to Soul Archaeology. This episode is a little delayed. I was in St. Louis and North Carolina helping my parents move. We were in full-on movement mode, moving marathon. And although at times it was quite chaotic and there was a lot of movement and a lot of change and a lot coming up for all of us as our parents move, it was also such an honor and a beautiful experience to walk them across that threshold, living in one place for so long and then leaving and starting their new chapter. So a lot coming up around that. I think I've talked to a few people actually who experienced this last week, but with all of the solar flare activity, all of the Gemini in the skies, I had some pretty intense vertigo last week, and vertigo came up for me the first time in 2022 when I had COVID and stopped drinking coffee abruptly. I haven't been a coffee drinker since 2022. And I had a little decaf last week, and it was also just this swirling, whirling Gemini energy, so much coming up through the psyche. I know so many of you experience that as well, just really old things being unearthed, old patterns, old thoughts, thought patterns, belief systems coming forward. Also a tendency to really float and kind of get lost in that swirl, swept up in the chaos a little bit. And that's common with Gemini energy. It's not rooted, it's not grounded, that's not what it's here for, that's not its intention. And so we just had Mars move into Taurus from Aries. So having Mars in Aries with all of that Gemini energy might have caused you to spin out a little bit, to feel a lot of pressure to move, to tend to each and every thought. And now with Mars in Taurus, it's interesting having this Taurus, this rootedness, this grounded energy present. It's helping us anchor a little bit more. And we really need that. We really need that right now to support us in our lower chakras, to help provide some earth energy in the swirling chaos of all the Gemini energy. We have the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter all in Gemini. So there's still a stellium happening. It's still a very auspicious time on the other side of the Venus Cazimi to work with some of this air magic, to honor what it's here to provide, but not get lost in it. It can be so easy when we feel so much swirling around and so much chaos and so many ideas, curiosities, things coming up that have been buried in the psyche, buried in the mind for a long time in our subconscious that maybe we thought were cleared. You might see them surfacing now. It's sort of like, it's like a little, sometimes Gemini energy can remind me of Pigpen in Charlie Brown. When it's unhinged, unchecked, imbalanced, it can be a little chaotic. It can be a little swirly. It can be ungrounded. And so having this Mars and Taurus energy coming in to help us root a little bit can be super helpful. Gemini is so curious. It's so experimental. It's looking at all of the data and information. It's not quite ready to commit to one thing. So if you're still feeling that overwhelm, it's really normal. Our job right now is to harvest data, not necessarily process it or make decisions or find the clarity we're seeking, but to just harvest it, to kind of let it be present, to see all of the the ideas, the thoughts, the beliefs, the feelings swirling around, and just let them be. Let it be okay. Maybe there's a big decision that you're feeling kind of cooking, and every day you feel differently about it. Every day a new idea or a new way of pulling it through comes up. What if you just didn't have to make a decision about it right now? What if you dropped deeper into faith? What if you let it just be okay to exist with the feeling, exist alongside the thought, the idea, without putting pressure on yourself to act upon it? So often I think we feel like we need to act upon every emotion, every thought, every belief. We need to go in and dig it out, excavate it, get to the root of it, right? I mean, that's a lot of what I do in my work, and I always feel like there's a time for that, and there's a time to just let it be, to just see it, witness it, allow it to be there. Especially in big change portals like this, it can be overwhelming because there's so much coming up and so much you want to accomplish and so much that's being revealed that we want to just do it all at once. Even if that's the healing process, even if it's that you're noticing this limiting belief come up and feeling like it's time to heal it or excavate it or pull it forward. And it is, right? There's always that opportunity, but I'm giving you permission, if you need it right now, just to be. Gemini loves options. It's curious about everything. It's the socialite. It's the butterfly. And so it can feel like this time might feel like there's so much opening. And especially with the solar flares. I mean, we've had some record-breaking solar activity this year already. And that's pretty apparent. I think everyone who's breathing can agree that this year has been wild. And each and every sign, planetary placement, it creates a patterning. It creates an environment or an energy to allow things to come forward. And so when we think about the sun and its illumination, it's all about the ego. It's about vitality. It's about our essence. It illuminates. It holds wisdom, power, life force. And so when we have more light entering the planet like we have now, these surges and waves of expansion are occurring. And we're in a major expansion process right now. We have been for a while, but this year it's a bit of a pressure cooker. It's this push and pull energy back into the past, catapulted into the future. And we're doing this dance all throughout 2024. You might feel light years ahead at some points and 12 years behind at other times. That's the nature of 2024. 2025 is a bit of a quantum leap year. We have the outer planets. I know I've said this a few times, but we have the outer planets moving into new signs. So there's this reset in the energy that's pretty magnificent and pretty intense. And that's why we're doing so much of this excavation work this year. And so with the extra light that we're receiving this year, what it does is it activates the density. And I think that's very clear to all of us. It's activating our own internal density, the spaces and places within us that hold charge, that hold trauma, that hold shadow, the things that keep us held in the past. So with all of the light, although it's beautiful and expansive and it's calling us to a higher timeline, to a higher frequency, but in the process of that, it means there's more processing that needs to occur. It also means we receive more insights, more data, downloads, upgrades. As our physical body receives more light, we upgrade. We process the density so that we can enter a higher frequency as beings. With more being revealed, more must be reckoned with. And that's so much of what this lifetime is about. It's about, it's very Plutonian in a lot of ways. We're in a Pluto return. America is in a Pluto return. And so when we look at that, we are in a space of reckoning. within ourselves, within our species, within our country, our collective. And so when we have this extra light, it's illuminating the cracks and the spaces within us and within our collective that need more light. They need to be seen and witnessed. So I've talked about this a lot, and I don't want to harp on it too much, but it's important to dance with the light, to know when you need to pull inwards and contract a little bit and process and be with what's there, and when it's safe to open again and to move forward. And this dance, it's so funny. It kind of reminds me of the dance in Dune. If you've seen Dune, the movie Dune, the sand walk, I think it's called a sand walk, but it's sort of this this motion that they do, this dance that they do in order to not disturb the, what is it, a sandworm, I think, the creature that lives in the sand. And so this is similar. It's a dance. It's this organic and delicate dance of being with the density and not getting lost in it, knowing when it's time to contract, to be with what's there, and when it's time to open, and how we can move through that dance with an open heart always. With the Gemini energy too, and with the amount of solar flares we're experiencing, it can feel like chaos, limitless potential, while also experiencing total overwhelm. And when we have limitless potential, that's a lot for our psyches to process. We're beings that are used to being told what to do. We're coming out of a very hierarchical age and time where we had little to no options in many ways. We didn't have a lot of power as a general kind of species. The Piscean time was very structured. It was about hierarchy. It was about being told what to do. And it was this feeling of we have to access our wisdom, our power, the knowledge and truth from a higher source. And not from the highest source, not from God, not from the universe, but from someone who told us what to do. And that was a way to keep order. That was a way to maintain our species. We needed that, at that point in our evolution. But now we're in a space where we experience so much potential, so many possibilities, and it's happened so quickly within a period of probably 100 years. Maybe even less, that it's incredibly overwhelming. Our nervous systems are overwhelmed. Our psyches are overwhelmed. The mind is overwhelmed. Sometimes it's nice to have a container. And when we think about feminine and masculine energetics, the feminine needs the masculine to provide a container for her power and her magic. And so with all of this Gemini energy, it's so playful, it's experimental, it's curious. There's so much within the mind that's expanding past the threshold, past what was possible and potential within our minds, our subconscious before. But that can also lead to overwhelm, which is why it's so nice to have Mars and Taurus to anchor and ground us a little bit. We also have some assistance from Saturn, and Saturn is sobering. Saturn places rules and structure and containers. It's masculine in nature. It's the father. And so when you think about when we're growing up, Gemini is the inner child. Saturn's the parent. And so when we think about development in children, it's so important to have limits, to have responsibilities, to know where we are in space and time, to have safety and containment in certain ways. That's part of our development. That's part of healthy development, healthy attachment. That doesn't mean we are victims to our limitations, but it means that it takes all of this curiosity, all of this desire for change and renewal and expansion and experience, and it creates a container for it, a way to channel it through. And that's what Saturn's doing. And Saturn is sobering, like I said. It brings us back to reality. And Jupiter being in Gemini until next May, a lot of this can feel like a tailspin. It can feel a little overwhelming, a little chaotic. It's a huge opportunity to bridge the gap, to find the center, but Saturn will be helping it through that process. Saturn is, like I said, it's the planet of restrictions, rules, structure, maturation, and it gives us what we need to mature. So as we receive more light, more illumination, more data and information, opportunities for upgrades, if we were just in a constant process of expanding without any containment of the chaos, we would explode. So Saturn helps with that. Saturn's going to bring us back to reality, back to the physical plane, even the 3D, because of course we are light beings living on a 3D plane, and that can feel restrictive, but there's also power in that. And so what we're doing is we're breaking down the old systems. Pluto in Aquarius was all about dismantling the old systems. We're in a little bit of a liminal space because the new systems aren't necessarily in place yet, but we're in this interesting space of expansion and contraction where we get to create our own rules. And that's what this is more about. Saturn squaring Jupiter, which will happen throughout Jupiter's entire ride through Gemini, which is actually, I think, really helpful because it's going to harness the energy a bit. It's about creating our own rules, anchoring into our own idea of what's important and possible on the physical plane, to break down the old paradigm way of doing things, and to connect to a collective consciousness, to mature out of this idea that it's just about us. It's only about the self, which I think is honestly the poison of our current society, is this sort of generalized narcissism that can exist. Saturn's about service. And so when we think about what are we in service to, hopefully the divine, which is our peers, our collective. And so Saturn provides a little bit of a container for us to process what's happening. It can also feel restrictive. And so maybe you have a million ideas, a million things that are coming through, while also the chaos is coming through, the limiting beliefs, the fears, all of the things. And that can feel overwhelming, like I said. We just entered the shadow of Saturn retrograde, which begins on the 29th of June. And so we're going to start to feel a little bit our limitations, our restrictions. We're going to get to dance with that and to really harness the power of Gemini, this experiential, expansive and fun inner child energy, the curiosity that it carries, and create some practical vehicles for it to express on the physical plane. On June 9th, we have the Sun squaring Saturn, and on June 12th, Mercury squares Saturn. So the Sun and Mercury are dancing together this week. We have a Mercury Cazimi this week as well, which is when Mercury passes through the heart of the Sun. So it's extremely illuminating. That's on the 14th. Throughout this week, you might experience this dance between this push and pull between being ready to move forward, ready to create, ready to go and experiment, and also the restrictions that are present on the physical plane. And it's really our job to dance with those restrictions, to look at where is it a limiting belief and where is it practicality. It's important to break down the restrictions that have been placed upon us, the conditioning, the programming, and then find a healthy relationship with Saturn, a sense of self-responsibility to something outside of ourselves as well. So this is the dance this week. It's a little bit of a push and pull. It's going to be interesting. We also have some interaction with Chiron and Aries, which is all about identity, power, victim consciousness. So don't get lost in it. Thank you so much for being here. I love you all. I just have been overflowing with gratitude to have you all here, to feel your presence, to feel your love and your openness and your commitment to listening and supporting this podcast. It means truly the world. I am forever grateful. I do have one spot left for private mentorship that begins mid-June, mid to end of June. And so this will carry us through the summer, through these retrogrades, through and into our next set of eclipses in September. And so I'm pretty excited about that. If you're interested, you can book a clarity call. I've had quite a few over the last few weeks that we're processing through. So if you're interested, let me know. There's space for the fall as well if that works better for you, but just feel free to book a call. If you have any questions, I'm here for that. This container is so deep, so transformative, so intimate, and I just love it so much. I love working with people in this capacity. I have met the most incredible women from all over the world, and I'm going to Europe this summer, and I was just like, I would love to just meet all of the women that I've worked with in Europe who I've sat with them through some of their biggest transformative journeys. And it's just such an honor. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for your openness and your beauty and your courage. I'm planning some group content for the summer as well, so look out for that. I'm really excited about creating a group container. It's something I've been called to for a very long time, as many of you know. So thank you for being patient with me as I work through that. And I'm excited to birth it through. I hope you all have such a beautiful, powerful, illuminating week. I hope you find some grounding, some love. I hope you feel the love coming through this microphone, and I will see you next week.